You ready to go?
Sure.
All right. Get ready for that opening intro video.
I don't know if I can dance. I can't dance. No, I won't. It just feels
Oh,
weird.
it does feel weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something I created, and I don't know. In fact, actually, I don't think I was the first one. It was somebody else was dancing when I played the music, and I was like, oh, I kind of like that. But
So
you
it's
never
their
know.
fault. I should blame them.
It's their Definitely blame them. It's
Okay.
definitely not my fault at all. Hey, welcome to the lounge. I'm Matt with Waltner Woodworking and your host of the Maker Lounge podcast, where we have a rotating group of makers hanging out and talking shop with each other. She's a former rocket engineer turned artist and maker. She's a published illustrator, muralist, and makerspace steward. If you've seen her swing a hammer, you know that she's not messing around. At first, I thought I read on her website that some of her inspiration comes from Greek culture, but I was wrong. It said geek culture, and that is when I knew that I had to have her on the podcast. Lindsay Murphy with Lindsay Creative is with us in the lounge today. Lindsay, thanks for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me.
So did I get all that right?
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I'm not as up to date on my Greek culture at all.
No.
Like, I could maybe name like two gods or goddesses, and that's about it. So.
I think you probably beat me on that. Yeah. If we were talking Greek culture tonight, it would be a very short podcast.
Yeah.
But geek culture, we might have to cut this thing off.
Yeah, that would be fun. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I'm the total nerd. My wife is the outgoing person, and I'm I could just go to a party. In fact, I was just at a holiday party for her family, and I was like, I'm perfectly fine being a wallflower. Like, I'm okay with that.
Oh yeah. Actually, just like I'll be in the corner hanging out with the pets. If there's any animals like a dog or a cat, I'll be, oh, you're my friend, and I'll just hang out with
Yeah.
you all evening. We're
Right,
good.
right.
And
Like, where'd Lindsay go? Oh, I think she's in the crate with the dog.
yeah.
So you're an animal lover?
I do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like animals, and I only have two cats, but if it was up to me, I'd have all the animals. Unfortunately, I have to take care of all of them, and that would
Right.
be too much for me.
Yeah.
So I'd rather be
So you
like
have,
a pet aunt or uncle, like or not uncle, sorry, a pet aunt. I don't know
yeah,
why it's an uncle.
you could be either. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about your family. And so you've got two cats, you've got
I've
two
got
kids.
two kids
Okay.
and a husband somewhere, and I live in Houston, just like down the road from you, I guess. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. We have this Houston group,
mhm.
and I talked about it in one of the other podcasts, and one of our Patreon members is like, hey, what's this Houston group you're talking about? And then so I got to get him into that group. But yeah, it's amazing. We've got this Houston group, and I've only met probably 10 or 12 of the, gosh, how many people are in that thing?
Lost count after a
40,
while.
50? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and I haven't met you, I don't think. Have we
Mm-mm.
met in person?
No, I mean, the last get together we had was like well, at least the one I went to was Helmwood Lumber Supply up
Oh,
in
yeah, yeah.
Tomball area, and
Gotcha.
that was a while ago. I think it was
Gotcha.
almost a year ago.
Before we get to the episode today, I want to thank our sponsor, Surf Prep Sanding. Whether you're looking for the highest quality of sanders, dust extractors, or abrasives, Surf Prep has what you need to take your project to the next level. I've been using Surf Prep for a couple of years now and know firsthand the quality of their products. The amazing family who stands behind their brand is by far the best in the industry. Use code MAKERLOUNGE, all one word, for 10% off your order at surfprepsanding.com. So yeah, huge thanks to Surf Prep for sponsoring today's episode with Lindsay Creative. So Lindsay, on your background, you haven't always been doing this creative stuff. You have an interesting uh, previous job.
Yeah,
You want to talk about that?
sure. Yeah, I used to work for the space shuttle program for till 2011, till obviously it ended and we weren't
Yeah.
flying anymore, and it was a fun job.
Yeah.
I worked on the space shuttle tile for reentry, so like the heat shield.
Oh, wow.
On the when it came back for reentry, that was like my primary job, was to figure out if they could come back safely or not. So that was all put into, we used to not have that until after the last accident, the
Oh, wow.
Columbia accident. So
Were you doing like hands-on stuff, or more from just like a design and inspection type stuff?
we were doing testing. So we were shooting foam and ice out of these big potato guns at tile. And then,
Oh, wow.
depending on the damage we got, we would make a mathematical model. And then I would run statistics and like all these equations to figure out like what kind of damage we could get, how much damage we could come back with it be, still like not get, well, first, like not have catastrophic damage or get any structural damage and things like that. So that's kind of,
is it like the crash test dummy thing where you're just like doing tests and tests over and over?
Yeah, it was a lot. We analyzed hundreds and hundreds of tests. So
yeah,
it was a lot.
So were you able to push the button to cause this catastrophic damage, or did they not let you push the button?
Oh, what? We don't want the catastrophic damage. No.
Well, you're testing, right?
Well, so. That. No, I never got to do that part. I was more of the nerd in the back crunching the numbers. That doesn't seem fair. So, but I did eventually get to be in mission control. And when, everyone says, go for launch, and all the different ones, I got to say go for launch a couple times.
Oh,
and that was
sweet.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
That's fun. And you probably couldn't take any video of it, right? Because you're not allowed to take anything out.
Yeah. We were never allowed to have cameras. And yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, I got to do that too. I don't have proof of it. I'm scared. That sounds like fun. So, so in 2011, they shut down the program. It used to say like in Houston, you either work for NASA or you're in oil and gas.
Totally.
And now it's just more like, okay, you're in oil and gas, or you're a teacher, or, I think this, the whole NASA thing, just, that sucks. Yeah. So had you planned on doing that for your career? And
I really had no idea what I wanted to do. And so I feel like I would just go from one thing to another. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds pretty cool. I'll do that. And when I got a job with them, there really wasn't anything else available at the time. It was kind of like a slow job market, and NASA was the only thing hiring at the time. So I worked for them.
Yeah, coming out of 2008. And all of that, right?
Yeah.
So actually, when did you start there?
I don't remember. A little bit before 2008, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but it was good. After that ended, then I just kind of had my second kid, and then I was looking out okay, what do I want to do with my life? And stumbled upon blacksmithing and stuff like that. So it was such a different role.
So one doesn't typically just stumble across blacksmithing. So tell me how that happened.
I was just taking a walk in the woods, and then there were a bunch of blacksmiths there. There's this park.
Welcome to Texas, people.
I know, that's what happens.
That's right.
The Houston area blacksmith group. They were having a little maker meetup, and they meet once a month. And this is just for the Houston people, just so you know, $20 for a whole year. That's your membership for the whole family. And
that's
just,
awesome.
If you ever want to do it, it's awesome. So,
Yeah, I'd love to give it a try
yeah.
sometime. And
And yeah.
that's why I wanted to have you on, because I have so many questions.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I work with wood
Yes.
and wood movement and all of that kind of, stuff.
Hmm.
With metal, you don't have metal movement, or do you?
You do, it's just different.
Right. I mean, you're moving the metal by blacksmithing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But once you create that form, you don't have to deal with any of those types of issues.
No, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a totally different thing. But I mean, the people in that group were great. They mentored me, they taught me so much. And yeah, it was great. And as
Yeah.
soon as I saw what they were doing, I got really excited. And I knew just like that's what I wanted to do, which
Yeah.
was not something I had with a lot of things. So it's pretty
Right.
cool.
So was it the first time like you went in and you're like, I'm hooked, or was it after a couple times?
Um, well, just watching them
Mm-hmm.
and seeing what they were doing, I got really excited. And then, but I didn't really actually start doing any of that until like a couple of months later when I could like meet up with them in person and
Yeah.
work the metal. And there were just some people who were really enthusiastic that I was there and they were excited. And just to kind of have that acceptance was awesome.
Yeah.
Because like, you know, what can like really turn off someone from learning a craft is like your teachers really suck.
Right.
Or they're
Yeah.
just, you know, jerks or snobs about it or something like that, you know, like
Yeah.
gatekeepers or something like, oh, you have to do it this way, this way, otherwise you're no, you know, like that kind of thing. They didn't do
Right.
that. They were just really excited. And if I like messed up on it, they would say, oh, it's art. It's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. That's right. It's a design feature.
It's art. You know, so that was like really encouraging because otherwise it's no fun
Right.
if you're constantly being criticized and stuff like that. So
So I'm in the oil and gas business for my full-time job.
Oh, okay.
And I used to work out in the field with different pipe fitters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when I think of blacksmithing, I think of pipe fitters, and you've just completely blown my mind saying that they're such a welcoming group, because pipe fitters are not the most welcoming group.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to work your time, and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. You got to put in your dues
Yeah.
and stuff. But I guess with it being a creative instead of
Mhm.
and that's another interesting thing I find about you is that you're an engineer type mind,
Mhm.
but then you've also got this creative side, and you're making all this super creative stuff.
Thanks.
So do you find yourself at like struggling when in your creative space, like thinking analytically about things, or?
Um, This is more of like, it can be my analytical mind will sometimes say, no, you can't do that. Pretty quickly, if I want to try something that might push the bounds of certain properties of materials or something like that. But usually they
Yeah.
go hand in hand really well. Like, a lot of times knowing what a material can and cannot do will kind of push me in a way to make those creative decisions in a certain way rather than the other way around. Where I find I like those boundaries because it kind of forces the creativity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So for the people listening, just maybe they haven't seen your page, and so they're not exactly sure what we're talking about. Walk us through some of the different types of projects that you're doing.
Well, I feel like I change direction every week. Sometimes it's just your basic blacksmithing stuff, like super easy. Like a lot of blacksmiths are like, I did that, like when I was first starting out. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I really like making them, like the S hooks I just made. Those are a beginner type thing, but I just think they're really fun to make. So I'll make a bunch.
Really cool.
But sometimes I'll make them long and weird and whimsical. I haven't even posted that. Another stuff I've done is like I made origami brass earrings. So like I folded up some brass sheeting and made a little like fortune teller type thing, like
Yeah.
miniature style. And then I made like a really large one, like probably about this big. What else have I done lately? I like random
You're doing a lot
things
of
like,
earrings.
oh yeah, like nostalgia type stuff, like Pop Tarts. I thought, oh, that'd
Oh
be kind of
yeah.
fun just to make Pop Tart earrings.
Yeah.
Um, I like to kind of go in the nostalgia area. So, oh, I made some copper cassettes lately, like acid
Yeah.
etch these designs and play with patina and, different surface looks with different metals. And I find that's really fun. So, like, just,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever comes to my mind, I'll try to like turn that into something physical.
Right.
But yeah, it's just like a
Do you
sampling.
get like special requests to make things, or is it more like your creative outlet and then you take whatever that is and you sell it, or both?
Um, a lot of times the requests will be inspired by something I made.
Oh, okay.
So for like last year, a lot of the things I made were these little envelopes with a little letter in it. And the letter would have like a special message on it. And so last year I wanted to make a gift for my sister. And so I made her a little silver envelope. And in there was a little brass letter. And it was probably about 1 by 2 inches. So it was very
Yeah.
tiny. And on the letter, it said something like, "You're the apple of my eye," or something like that. That was really inspiring for her.
Hmm.
And, and I gave that to her as a birthday present. And I posted that. And as soon as I posted that, people were like, "Oh, could you make this for my wife and my daughter?" And so I started making all these envelopes with special messages on each of the letters for their loved ones and things like that, which was really cool.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you
yeah.
get up to a point when you're making those, like, and then you've made like 30 of them and you're like, okay, I never want to make another one of these again?
Yes. I,
It,
I, I mean, the envelopes are great. I got done with them after a while because it
yeah.
can be a little bit, it can be too much after a while.
Yeah. It's probably the equivalent of, in woodworking terms, making cutting boards.
I would assume so.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Because once you've made, 20 or 30 cutting boards, there's different styles and stuff, but I'm not one of these like types that does all the different configurations with, different designs and all that kind of stuff. I'm
Mhm.
more of like a purist, a cutting board purist. So maybe if I challenged myself creatively to do something like that, maybe I would be okay making another cutting board, but I'd be perfectly fine never
Yeah.
making another one.
Yeah. I don't blame you. That's the one thing I think a lot of people like to joke with me about is they know that I don't like making a lot of the same thing.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the one thing I really absolutely hate.
Yeah.
And the lily that, if you've seen the steel lilies I've made,
Yeah.
a woman commissioned me. She wanted me to make 18 lilies for her family's grave sites
Mm.
to commemorate her family. And like there were 5 grave sites and 3 lilies for each grave site.
Oh wow.
And which was, I felt really honored to be part
Yeah.
of something like that.
Right.
But to make that many of the same thing over and over again, I
Yeah.
became a really good expert at that. But at the same time, I was like, I would be happy not to make these ever again.
Yeah. There was a
So,
lot of variability from number 1 to number 18. Like 18
oh,
looked spotless and number 1 was like, okay, yeah, this looks cool.
I would like to say it was a different interpretation.
Yes. It's a design feature. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I feel like my very first one was really good
Yeah.
because I was so focused on getting everything right.
Right.
And by the 18th one, it was like
Oh,
just a
so it's
different,
opposite. Yeah.
it was
One
just a
looks really
different
good and
thing.
18's like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah. And, and they were very, if you compare the first two, and actually, I don't think I ever put the first one in with the group because it looks so different from the rest.
Gotcha.
Which is
that
fine.
what you were making when Ruben with Fox 26 came?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he came in, I think he messaged me a while ago, and he's like, "I'd love to see you forging." And I'm thinking, okay, this is like the middle of July, or
Right.
it was or in June. I don't even remember. It was so hot that day. We were all sweating, and I'm running the forge, and I'm just like, this is awful. And I think that was the only forging I did that whole month.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I can believe it. So for the listeners, Fox 26 contacted Lindsay and said that they wanted to do a special. And so showed up, and it probably early morning, I guess, but still in Houston, it still could be 95 degrees.
Oh yeah.
And then how hot does that forge get up to?
It gets up to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And so I'm running that, and it's like 100% humidity.
Yeah. Lots of steam in the air.
Yeah. And they're good sports, though.
But it looked great on TV. Like, if I were running a forge in my shop and it was 95 degrees, I would look like my shirt would be drenched. Right. So like, that's just, I guess that's the difference between men and women, right? Like I just would be pouring sweat. It would not make for good TV. But yeah, he came to my shop, I guess a couple months later, and we thought we were gonna, I don't think I ever told you this story, but I thought we were gonna get some practice runs, because I think you did like a practice trial run or something.
No,
I reached out. No, you didn't. Okay, I think somebody else I had talked to had, maybe it was Bao.
Okay.
Bao had he went to his shop, and I think he got like a practice run, and but Ruben was pressed for time, so he showed up and he's like, "All right, you ready to roll?" I'm like, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, we have somewhere else to go after this," and so yeah, like we're on in 5 minutes.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he's like, "Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this segment, and then we're gonna take a break, and then we're come back to the next segment." And I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." And yeah, so no practice runs whatsoever, but yeah, it was a fun experience.
Did you see? Do you watch yourself after that? Like, could you watch yourself on TV?
Yeah. I couldn't not watch myself. Like, even like these podcasts, I'll go back and listen to them, because to me it helps. I think to me it makes me learn how to be a better podcaster if I listen to my podcasts, and then I can hear if I say a lot, or I say a lot, and now the listeners are going to probably pick up on that.
Oh, yeah. They're making notes right now. Okay.
Right.
5 times now. Like,
and they can get those notes put into a little metal envelope.
I will personally etch them all in a copper letter.
Yeah. Let's turn this back on you. This is getting very uncomfortable for me.
I'm just curious.
No, tease it.
I couldn't watch I didn't watch that.
You didn't?
Video segment. No.
Oh yeah. I posted them on my website. I was pretty proud of myself. I got like that day, I think I probably got 10 or 15 phone calls or emails.
Yeah.
And then it fizzled, which I was thankful for, because I think I told you, I was like, I don't want extra business out of this. Like, it's just good for, brand exposure to say that you did it.
Right.
Yeah. But I was like, I don't want the extra business. But now you are doing this as your full-time deal, right?
Yeah.
And so it's supporting your lifestyle. And for me, it's supporting my habit. It's buying new tools.
It's helping your mental health or whatever. I don't know.
It definitely does that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are you a happier person being out in the shop versus being behind a computer?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Does your husband notice the difference? He's like, "Oh yeah, go blacksmith all you want."
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess it's been 10 years, so.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I had a kid between then and now, and a lot of things have happened, like just with the pandemic and all that.
Right.
So I feel like I'm a better person when I get time in the shop for sure.
Yeah.
And I get grouchy if I'm away from it too long. Like I definitely notice a change in me. So
right.
And I get really like I get all these ideas, like creative energy, and I'm like, oh, I gotta do this, but no, I gotta do this and this and this, and I can't get in the shop, and then it just gets like either I'll lose that idea or I can't think of anything else. Like, it's
You sketch a lot of your stuff out on paper, right? Mm-hmm. So like you did one that had like one of the recent ones I saw, I think it was fairly recent, was like a shell thing. You had like a shell with like a little design around it or whatever. So like using that for an example, are you sitting there and you do the design and then you go to start making right away? Or are these just like designs that you've had in your brain for a while?
It depends. Like if I'm really on top of things, right? Because I know a lot of makers do this too, where you just go in the shop and you start making, and then you end up with something amazing, and then you're like, how did I do this? Like, what were the steps that got me to this point? I completely forgot. So if I'm really on top of things, I will write everything out step by step. I'll even like write out dimensions. If it's something I know I want to reproduce, I'll like definitely write out dimensions and everything like that. Yeah. But if a lot of times, like, where did I put my notebook? I have a notebook where I draw everything, and I don't know where it is. It's probably over there. But some of it's just like a really quick idea, and I just sketch it down really fast because I don't have time to like really spend on it. Yeah. One was like my silver stag spoon that I turned a spoon into a stag, and it was just this idea that was in my head for a while, and I just needed to get it out on paper so I wouldn't forget it. Yeah. And it's just like a really scrawl, but if I look at it, it's like it tells my mind, oh, this is what you wanted to do. Okay, so then I'll go with it. But and it was one of those things where I knew I wasn't going to reproduce it. It was just going to be a one and done kind of thing. So like those are really crappy drawings, but there'll be other ones that have like, I get the ruler out and I have everything to scale. Yeah. That's when I feel like real engineering. Like I took a drafting class. Get the little arrows in.
Do you do any like anything electronically for your design stuff?
I mean, I'll go into Inkscape and do some stuff, but no like dimensions and stuff like that. That's more like if I wanted to take a drawing and make an SVG file out of it. Right. But I don't do that often. That's more of like logos. Not a whole lot.
Where do you get your inspiration from?
Everywhere.
Because like woodworkers, we'll walk around and we'll be sitting at a restaurant, and we're like, oh, is this an oak table? Oh yeah, this is nice. And oh, did they epoxy that? Do you find yourself walking around looking at metal things all the time?
Oh, all the time. All the time. And also woodworking type stuff, even though I'm not a woodworker. I have so many friends who are. So now I check to see, oh, look at this. Like it's walnut. Like I started to understand like what kind of wood grains are what. I'm terrible at it, but at least, or like, oh, I love the way they hand carve this, or what is, or power carved it, just things like that. But I'm not a woodworker by any means. Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm listening. I'm not saying that you're not. Kidding. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't know if you are or not, because you post metal stuff, but you might be a woodworker.
Yeah, there was a couple things I made from wood. I actually, there is some things.
Is there?
This is another thing where I get inspiration from. These are all the different places. One is if someone gives me a new material, then I'm like, ooh, what can I make from this? And
Gotcha.
one of them is uh, Andrea from Zatara Crafts. She gave me a bunch of offcuts from her wood selection, and a lot of it's dyed burl, and other really pretty cool pieces, and just beautiful colors. And I started making some pendants from it, so I haven't released those yet, but eventually that's going to be out there. So like things like that.
Okay.
I get inspired by like new materials. So I just one of my I guess a woodworker where they spend a lot of money is on different kinds of wood that they find. Like, oh, look at this beautiful piece of lumber. Let me use that. For someone in my area, I discovered, so I started getting into jewelry making. And one of the things that jewelers are really into is stones. And there's so many stone dealers, and I just spent a lot of money on stones this week because I'd really like to get into this kind of stones and these kind of stones, and then you start like figuring out what kind of minerals they are and all that stuff. It's crazy. Wow. And
do they react differently when they come in contact with, like, because you're forming the hot metals around some of this stuff?
I do it when they're cold. So there are some metals you can anneal. So it softens the grain structure, and then you can work it cold. So like silver, copper, brass, you anneal, and it's like you heat it, and then it cools, and then you can actually work with it when it's cold. And so that's what I do with that. Now with steel, I haven't done that yet. That would be really fun to do too.
Yeah.
Like if someone gave me
like, oh great, more ideas.
No. I mean, I've seen a lot of people do this, so it's not like a new thing at all, but where you take you make sort of like a cage with like a bunch of steel wires around like an empty space, and you heat it up, you open it, you throw in like a marble, and you close it when it's still hot, and then and it looks like I mean, people make magic wands out of them and stuff like that. And it looks really cool. Or Christmas ornaments, things like that.
And for those of the people who aren't watching on either Spotify or YouTube, because she did a lot of like illustrations, but she did a fantastic job of describing what she was illustrating. So thank you for doing that. Because sometimes people will be talking about like, oh yeah, I made this, whatever, like, or they're showing something in the background. But yeah, that's cool. So where do you source your materials from?
Let's see. There's a steel supply store kind of on 610 area. I get my steel from there. And I get my silver from a place in San Antonio. I try to get everything ethically sourced. So like all my stones, I want to get like not locally here from Texas, but like not like from like a sweatshop, not from China. A place where they use child miners or anything like that. But like I usually get a lot of my stones from like the southwest region of the United States. So like Arizona, Nevada, Utah. So that's where I get my stones. Because I don't think people realize like where a lot of this stuff comes from. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
And so you're a bit of a philanthropist, right? Didn't you did like a giveaway and stuff like that, right?
Oh yeah. It was a lot of work, and I haven't done it. I haven't done one in a long time. And I would
giveaways in general are a lot of work, but something of the magnitude of what you were doing, it was like an auction type thing, right?
Yeah, that was back in 2020, and it was obviously in the it was a response after George Floyd was killed. And then I wanted to raise money, but I didn't know necessarily what charity to go, give to.
Right.
And I mean, I picked my charities, but I knew like some people really wanted to give to this charity and other people want to give to this charity. I said, okay, well, how about, like we will raise money, but it would be like, as long as it goes towards social justice,
Right.
Like a social justice charity, you can get like a raffle ticket. And that's kind of what we did. And I think it raised over $2,000 or something like that to different various, and it was so many different charities, and it was really cool. And it gave people the opportunity to choose where they wanted their money to go, and rather than, I guess,
right,
I'll give to your, I don't know. I just felt really cool. And then also for the makers to give of their whatever they created to that, which was really cool. But I guess, I mean, there were other charities like I'll donate my work to as well. And other people will do the charities, and I'll just like I'll donate my work to it.
Right.
So I like doing that.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've donated a couple cutting boards and stuff to those types of things. I think that's really, it people think, oh, well, you're just doing it for tax write-off or whatever, but it feels really good to do something like that. I think,
oh, for sure.
Some people do it for brand exposure and things like that. But what you did that's fantastic. So during the pandemic, a lot of people were shifting environments. They were going from working downtown like I was, and then going to work from home. So for you, was the transition tough? I mean, because you're working out of your own space and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Did you see production pick up, or was like no change on your side?
It's weird is that before all that, I just finished installing a mural at the library here. And I was just transitioning from doing that to metalwork, and I wanted to get into jewelry. And for the past couple years, I was like, okay, now I want to get into jewelry. And then something else would come along. Now I want to get into this and something else. And it just felt like I could never really start it up. And so 2020 was actually when I really started working towards that. And that's right when my kids came home and I had to do online schooling with them. And I'm like, no.
Oh yeah. It did shift your perspective. Yeah. Yeah. There goes your productivity.
Yeah. And it was just, it ratcheted up my stress level like so high.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I saw that everyone was going online. And so it was a lot easier for me to sell my work and get my name out there and meet a lot of people that I don't think I would have normally met and develop relationships. And I think all that happened in 2020 and beyond was actually in some ways a good thing. Because I don't think I would have necessarily gotten this far as I have if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to think of it as a good thing, but
yeah. Well, I think a lot of makers found their happy place during the pandemic because it gave them a chance to spend more time. Yeah, so they were spending their time with their family, during the day because they had to.
Yeah.
And then they could head out to the garage, in the evening. And because like you said, I mean, it's good for your mental health and just, makes for happier people. So in some ways, it's like, for me, I had stopped woodworking for quite some time. And it was around the time the pandemic was happening. It was just before that I started woodworking again, and it felt really good. And then of course, when the pandemic hit, I wasn't having to travel downtown. So I could cut out at 4:30 and hit the shop and stuff like that, which was good. Yeah, definitely good for my mental status. Cause I was kind of at my breaking point driving downtown.
Yeah. I think meeting a lot of makers online was so helpful for me to have that community.
Yeah.
Because I was at home with kids all the time, and
Right.
I needed like a kind of like a outside connection, I think. So it was good.
Yeah. So as your stuff started like selling more, are you in any stores? Or are you selling primarily online?
Yeah, right now I'm just selling online, and I finally created a website. Like before all this,
Yeah.
before my website, I was just selling through Instagram. People would message me, and I'd post something right away, and then within a couple hours it would sell.
Wow.
But it got to be a lot of work on my part and a lot of mental load. And I wanted to kind of move that over to a website, and it took a bit of time and energy to put together a website, but I'm
Yeah.
so glad I did. It's helped a lot. So
Yeah.
um,
So you
yeah.
batch out a couple of things. I know you said you don't really like kind of working and batching things out, right?
Yeah.
But do you sometimes, just because you know it's going to be a hit item, batch out a
Mm-hmm.
couple
Oh
or
yeah.
yeah.
I mean the Pop-Tart earrings and the origami earrings, like a lot of those I make at least, I mean, it's small batches.
Right.
It's still not, I think, to the level of huge manufacturers or anything like that. I don't think I'll ever get to that point. Not because I just don't want to do that. I
Right.
don't think that necessarily is a sign of quality if I'm making 100 of the same thing.
Yeah.
It just kind of takes away from the uniqueness of what I made.
Right.
I really pride myself on that. It's small batches of something that's really unique and you don't see anywhere else, or made that way.
Yeah.
So
I think that's really
yeah.
cool because then people know, like, if I want this, I got to buy it now.
Oh yeah.
Because I may miss that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I think, like for me, if I was, I have on my website, cutting boards or whatever, and you can pick, which type of wood do you want or whatever, and
Yeah.
what it generally what it's going to look like. But your pieces
Mm-hmm.
are all so unique. If one were to scroll through your Instagram page, which I'm assuming that's your primary portfolio right now,
Mm-hmm.
besides the website, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if somebody were
I'm on
scrolling through,
TikTok, but don't.
uh, yeah, just like me, Tic Tac. Yeah. Um, I do it. I did Tic Tac out of necessity. And
Yeah.
I like saying Tic Tac because then, it makes me feel old and crotchety. This new
I like
technology.
it.
Yeah. But yeah, if somebody's scrolling through your Instagram page, you see a bit of an evolution in your process and stuff like that, I think, going
Mm-hmm.
back to your earlier posts and things.
Yeah.
And then you can see when you're kind of on a creative kick in like earrings
Yeah.
or rings. Like the
Yeah.
snake ring was really cool.
Oh, thanks.
I really like that. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm going to be in trouble because my wife, when she listens to this episode, she's going to be like, wait, what's her website? And then she's going to want all the things because
Yeah.
she loves all that kind of jewelry type
It's
stuff.
fine with me. She can buy everything.
Right, right. Let's talk price point. What is a typical and I mean, there's a lot of time invested in something like
Mm-hmm.
this, right? So let's
Yeah.
say that there's for the listeners, there's a ring that you make,
Mm-hmm.
um, that you made that is it's like a small, what is it, like a 16, no, probably like an 1/8 inch or 1/16 of an inch type of snake that wraps around, or
Mm-hmm.
and so like something like that. How long would something like that take you to make?
Well, that one took me all day to make because, I mean, if you think about, I'm designing it.
Right.
I'm not, I mean, usually if I'm doing small batch work, it means that it's the first of its kind. I haven't done it before,
Mm-hmm.
and I probably will only make a couple. And so a lot of it is the design work and then figuring out, okay, like I had to anneal it and then I'm pickling it, which is like cleaning it off.
Yeah, you're like right over my head with all that.
so,
Speaking of
so
Greek culture.
Right. So like
Let's talk
annealing,
geek culture.
like I heat it up with a acetylene torch, heat the silver. So it's a sterling silver that I mainly work with. And it has a little bit of copper in it. It just, which makes it great for doing patina on it and stuff like that. But so I'm hammering it, I'm tapering the tail, I'm shaping its head by hammering it and forging it on the anvil. And then I'm going back, then I'm annealing it again, and then I'm shaping it into the shape of the snake. And that might actually take multiple anneal, like, because I might not be happy with it and then I have to hammer it again and again. And then it stiffens and I can't move it. So I have to heat it again and do that process over and over and over again. And then I'm sanding it and then I'm polishing it. I mean, sanding is the same amount as like woodworking because you start at like a rough grit and then you work your way up to about 2000 grit. Then you're polishing it. I'm also filing in all the details. So, I mean, that would take me, I think it took me about 4 hours, 5 hours to make.
Oh, wow.
Just that ring.
Yeah.
So
is there,
and
go ahead.
And then I'm soldering it. So I'm shaping the ring.
Oh, yeah.
Then soldering and getting that snake to just sit just right on the ring.
Yeah.
And setting that up entirely.
Yeah.
So, like, all those things can take a long time.
Is there, I mean, I guess it's all kind of relative, right? Like how much you'd have to make on something like that. But is there good margin? Because most of it is time for you.
Yeah.
So you're paying yourself
time.
well? I mean,
I'm still working that out in my head of like what to charge because I go and I look at what other people are charging and either they're making a ton of the same thing and so their prices are really low or or they're just extremely high because and it's difficult to kind of put prices out there that I feel like are not too outrageously high so people can actually afford some of the things but to also just be honest about this did take me a lot of time and effort and then the quality of the materials and all that stuff so it's tough.
Yeah, because I think Etsy has helped and hurt a lot of creators like you and I, where people can mass produce things. There you have the laser cutters versus the scroll saw artists, right? One takes like an incredible amount of time to do, and one is on laser. And laser people would say, and I'm a laser person, right? I don't have the patience to do the scroll saw stuff. There are some projects that it's therapeutic for me, but I don't have the patience to do some of the designs that some of these really creative people do. So a laser person would say, well, the quality of a laser cut thing is better. You're going to get exactly like the file. But then the scroll saw artist says, well, yeah, but I made this by hand. But as the consumer, you look at the two different price points, and a scroll saw artist has to charge 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount that somebody who cuts it on a laser. And a person scrolling through Etsy doesn't know how much time you've invested versus someone who's got 10 or 12 people working on the same exact design and mass producing these things. And then like turnaround on this stuff too. So yeah, you're in a kind of awkward space, right? Is there a lot of competition in this space?
I think everyone develops their own style and their own design style. And so
Mm-hmm.
if you're into, say, Southwest style looking jewelry, you have a ton of competition.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're into like a certain style, then yeah, you would have a lot of competition. But I I choose not to really see it as competition and just more of like, okay, we all have our own little pockets of people who really like to buy from us and to support us. And
Yeah.
it's okay if like these people want to buy from this person or whatever. Necessarily
Yeah.
I don't necessarily see it as like, oh, that's taking away from, my stuff or whatever. But
Right.
and my stuff isn't for everybody. Like I know like a lot of people that's not their style, and that's fine. Like it's not for you.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't want someone to buy something that they're not going to use or they're not going to wear
Right.
or display.
Yeah.
So to me
Yeah.
that's really
That makes
not
sense.
like an issue, even though like I could see it as I need my prices to be similar, but I mean, I might do it like, okay, someone's selling their rings or earrings for $100. I'll kind of be in the same ballpark. Not necessarily to be competition, but more of like, okay, that's the asking price for like particular piece. So I might do that,
Right.
but that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're making wearable art.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go into Kohl's and you buy a pair of earrings, you're buying earrings. But so it's not necessarily art. You're buying earrings. But if you're buying a Lindsay creative piece, you're buying artwork for your ears,
Yeah.
or your hand or whatever.
I mean, and
So
that's
yeah,
true for
you have a little bit of
yeah.
flexibility.
Yeah, and it's true for anything like cutting boards. Like the quality of work that goes into making cutting board that you see at Target versus like what you would buy
Yeah.
from someone who actually put the time and effort into making one.
Right.
And it's different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the quality materials are different. One's gonna last a lot longer than the other piece. So a lot of the jewelry I see at like Target, I mean, it's like $15. I was like,
Yeah.
what is that
Yeah.
material? Like, and you look on the back
Right.
to see like what it's made out of, and you're like,
Yeah.
it doesn't say what material it's made out of. Like, I don't know what that
Yeah.
is. So
My finger is green after wearing it, in the pool.
yeah.
So yeah, your stuff. Can people wear it in the pool and all that kind of stuff, or do you recommend?
It's like
Does your stuff?
would you throw your walnut cutting board in the dishwasher?
Yeah, please don't. Yeah, that's a good point. You win.
Yeah. That's kind of how
1 point for Lindsay.
Yes. I didn't know this was
You're
like
winning.
a game show.
Well, actually, great transition. We do have. I do games on this show, or show this whatever this is podcast.
All right.
I do games, and I do different games. Yes or no game. One I've been doing recently when I have like one-on-one conversations is called Rapid Fire. If you're up
Awesome.
for it,
Okay.
I've got some questions.
Sure.
This is a great way for people to get to know. Like we can kind of burn through a couple different things. People can get to know you a little bit more, and then they could decide whether or not they want to follow you after.
No.
This is your make or break.
Unfollow.
No,
Why did I
no-
even waste
no
my
pre-
time following this person?
no pressure.
It's okay.
And yeah, so I call it rapid fire.
Okay.
It's not my idea. This has been around for decades, but basically I'm just gonna say a phrase or question or whatever, and you give me the first thing that comes to mind.
Oh, shit.
All right. All right, here we go. They're super easy, so it's not like, yeah, it's super easy, and it's things that only you know. All right, here we go. First one. So what is a hobby outside of metalworking and art that you enjoy?
Cross stitching.
Cross stitching. What is cross stitching? I think I know what it is. But so what do you mean? Maybe I don't know what it is.
It's like sewing. And you make X's.
Oh.
And
Okay.
I'm like the worst person to explain it. Like I just do it.
Well, it's a hobby.
I just started getting into it. Like it's a hobby I used to do when I was a kid, and then people started doing it again, and they would make like sayings like, you know, like smart statements of like, you know, or cheeky statements or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to reduce the swearing.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh,
don't
that
worry,
would be fun.
I'm ready for you.
No, it's okay. And I started cross stitching a skull, and that I'm still not done. So
Yeah.
And I started 3 months ago.
Is this one of those things where you have it's like on a frame and the canvas or whatever that you're okay. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, my grandma used to do that, and I think you're right. I have seen that kind of making a resurgence. No, it's like one of those crafts, like you know, like blacksmithing and stuff is starting to kind of take off, right?
I'm like a millennial, elderly millennial. What do they call it?
You're like, did he just call me old?
Yeah, it's fine. I'm part grandma in my heart.
Right. Well, I made the Tic Tac comment, so I guess, you know, we're both coming to a realization where we are. Yeah. All right. So next question.
Okay.
Move quickly off of this one.
Sure.
What's your favorite type of metal or material to work with?
Silver.
Silver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is it because it looks better, or it's easier to work with, or just like what's your?
It's really fun to melt. Like it's easy to melt, and it's really fun to solder. Like it's just once you start working with different kinds of metals, and silver is just easier in a lot of ways, and it's just nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. All right, next question. What do you enjoy more, the process of making or seeing the final product?
The process.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of the therapy part of it, or the
the problem solving, the if everything's going really well, then it's like high-fiving myself like the whole time. And I'm like, yes, this is awesome.
Yeah. When you have those projects that are going too well, you're like, what is going to happen at the end? I just feel like that something's going to happen. It's going to break, or you're like, this is way too easy.
Many times.
Yeah. If every project went like this, I'd be a millionaire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing this huge church pew project where I had 3 14-foot long church pews, and that came out of an old Quaker church. And this lady, she wanted them broken down into 6 different sizes. So I had to build new ends for them and stuff like that. So I had to match the old wood and the new wood and stuff. It was like, okay, yeah, that looks like red oak. And so I bought the red oak, and I cut them in half on my table saw, which went way easier than I was expecting. And then I built the ends, and that went easy. That part should have been easy. And then I went to like hand route out the channels in it, which was a super nerve-wracking experience. But all 6 of them, I didn't have any issues. The router didn't slip or anything. I didn't have to remake anything. It went super well. And I get like 90% of the way done, and I'm like, this was like, not to say this was easy money, but it was easy money, you know. It kind of felt like, nice. Okay, this is going too well. And then the finishing,
Oh no.
You know, that they say that the last 10% takes 90% of the effort.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it was the finishing, and I started like I did like a test piece of the new wood and the old wood, and once I put finish on it, they did not match at all. And so yeah, I was like, okay, well, here it is. You know, not I guess I'm a bit of a pessimist by nature, where I was like, you know, I knew it was going to happen, and sure enough, you know, and then it was like, well, that took all the effort, right? It sucked the joy right out of me. I was like, I want these things out of here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All right. So next question. Who inspires you?
A lot of people.
We don't, I guess we don't need names necessarily, but like, do you go to for inspiration? Do you go to like social media? Do you watch YouTube? Like, what's your...
It's mainly Instagram, and actually I will normally share people who inspire me like every Saturday or Sunday. What I started doing just a month ago, I started sharing like inspirational pieces that people made that I just think are really cool. So let's see. I post a lot of Emily Joyce's work because I think her stuff is just very cool. I love her ingenuity in how she makes her work. And I think the themes of her work are really well done and really well thought out. So she's one who inspires me.
Cool.
Let's see. Like, I should like look at the people I just shared recently.
Yeah. And see, that's why we call it rapid fire, because
Yeah.
it really puts you on the spot, makes it awkward.
The other person I was going to say was my daughter, who inspires me because she always gives me ideas.
Oh, that's cool. Have you ever taken a piece that she's drawn and made something from it?
No. It's more for comments or things like
okay.
that. Or like, oh, mom, you should make that. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That would be cool. So like the origami earrings, that was totally inspired by her. So
yeah,
I mean,
that's cool.
The Pop-Tarts inspired by her. So
right.
I mean, a lot of that kind of playfulness, that's definitely comes from a little 10-year-old mind. So
that's really cool. I like that. All right, we've got 3 more. Are you sweating yet?
No, it's all right. This is easy.
See, I told
need
you
a
they're
challenge.
easy. Right? Okay, here you go.
Great.
Worst shop injury that you've had?
Oh man, I gotta think back. All I can think of is when my mom got injured.
Oh my gosh! Don't tell on your mom, unless you caused it.
No. It just the sight of her injury made me be really careful in the shop. So, she nearly cut her thumb off. She was cutting sheet metal, and the sheet metal spun and like sliced through her thumb, like
wow,
to the bone. Anyway, gross.
Wow. Yeah, lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
People are listening to this in their car, and they had to just pull over it.
That would be me.
Yeah. You'd be like, so fast forward.
I think I cut myself really bad when I was working with metal, and I sliced through my thumb, and I was at our maker space, and I remember thinking, I just need to get to I can't look at it. Like I was like, I can't look at it, otherwise I'm gonna pass out, because I don't do well with blood, and I don't do well with like injuries. So like anytime someone posts something, I just like skip through it because I will pass out. And luckily we have like a good medical kit there, and I don't really remember like all what I did, but yeah, it's pretty bad.
I'm sure you burned yourself, like grabbed a piece and thought that it wasn't hot anymore, or forgot. And
that happened to me one time. I was at a maker meetup, like a HABA, Houston area blacksmith group. And so there's a lot of new people. And this one guy heated up like a half-inch square bar in the fire, in the coal fires. And then he decided he didn't want to do it anymore. And so he took it out, and then he put it with all the hammers and the tongs.
Oh my gosh.
And so I had no idea that's what he did. And I'm like, oh, I need to go get a pair of tongs because, whatever. So I reach into that, and first thing I grabbed was that 1-inch bar to move it out of the way. I pick it up because it was black. It was black, but just because it's black doesn't mean it's not hot. Just because it's not glowing red doesn't mean it's, And I think I touched it for less than 10 seconds, but it was so hot. I dunked my hand in we have big buckets of water everywhere. I just dunked my hand in it. And I think I was swearing a lot. And I was so mad at that guy. And,
Did he ever come back?
You can't really be mad because they're just beginners and they don't know anything.
Right.
But still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, we probably should move off of this one so that way you don't pass out on the podcast. Yeah. Lindsay was the first person who passed out on the Make Your Laugh podcast.
I try not to be really graphic. You can take out the injury from my mom if you want. So
no, we'll keep it all in.
Oh, great.
Yeah. All right. So, because we're both from Houston, I'm originally from California, and you haven't always been in Houston, right?
Right. I'm from Philly.
You're from Philly, okay.
Yeah.
So, and you moved here. I'm getting to the question, so I shouldn't have rung the bell yet. When
I got that.
when did you move to Houston? What year?
Oh, I was in high school.
You're in high school, okay.
A long time ago.
So this question is geared off of people who aren't from Texas, okay, that come to Texas. So not natives.
All right.
Warm or cold salsa?
I like warm salsa.
Okay. Yeah. Did you at first was Texas the first time you had warm salsa?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
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 So for the people who haven't been to Houston or haven't been to Texas, they do this thing here. I had never experienced it in my entire life. And I came out here and I was like, well, I want Mexican food. I don't want to go for steak yet. I'm going to ease into this thing. So I went for Mexican food and they served me salsa and it was warm. And I told the waitress, I said, I think did you guys just blend this? Or did you just make this? And she's like, she thought it was a trick question. Did I think it was old salsa? I said, my salsa is warm. What's wrong with this? And she just looked at me like I was weird. And I had never experienced warm salsa before. Yeah. It's a thing out here.
It is.
And people are either warm salsa or cold salsa people, I think.
I mean, I will. Okay. So if I make salsa like fresh, with pico de gallo, right?
Right. Okay.
That's cold.
Yeah.
Right. But then salsa, I mean, I've gotten used to it. I really like it that way.
So I'll say that I guess I take back what I said, that you're either one or the other, because I like both. I guess part of the old me still likes the cold salsa. I like Chewy's salsa is really good. It's cold but Chewy's is kind of everywhere. Mm-hmm. The places here, like Papacitos, when they have their warm salsa or whatever, it's so good. And there's a couple hole in the wall places they do the warm salsa. Mm-hmm. And so I'm we have Chachi's up here in Kingwood and they serve warm salsa. So sometimes I'm just really craving that warm salsa.
Yeah.
But now that we've made people hungry, if you haven't been to Texas or experienced warm salsa, you should give it a try. Just open your mind.
I mean,
but before you try it, stick your finger in it so you know Don't let it be a shock to you like it was to me. Yeah.
Unless you're sharing that salsa with other people, then that would be
Wait.
like a really bad thing to do.
That's frowned upon.
Yeah. I will
Yeah.
say though, like I do think we have really good food here. Like
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
like and
The Mexican
like,
food, the steaks, the steak places, all, yeah. And that's why I look the way that I do, because I love the food in Houston.
and the Vietnamese food is really good too. Like, or at least in my area, because we have like just so many good Vietnamese restaurants where I am.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're up in Kingwood.
You're down on the south side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really
yeah.
good.
We don't have really like that. Like in Midtown, I think Midtown's got like a little subsection of Asian foods and Asian markets and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like an Indian market like area and stuff where you can buy like the spices and all that kind of stuff. It's like a totally different world there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like a couple different blocks. You're like, am I still in Houston or am I in India? Like it's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question. And I probably should have ended on a difficult one, but this is fairly easy, probably. What is the metalworker's equivalent to clamps? You can never have enough clamps. Maybe it is clamps.
Hammers. You can never have enough
Okay.
hammers.
All different types, different peens, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And are you always looking for your hammer?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like tape measures. Like, where do I put my hammer?
Or there was one, I don't know what happened to it. You get to a point where you're like, oh, this one's my favorite. It does this, or, it has my favorite sort of texture. And
Yeah.
one hammer I lost for a while and I had no idea where it was. I was so bummed out. So
Oh, wow.
you can get emotionally attached to a hammer for sure.
Oh, I'm sure you can. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So do you have like a lot of, I imagine metalworking, it requires a lot of tools, right? Different tongs and, oh, by the way, that's the end of the game. So you're off the hook of the rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
So do you have like a bunch of different tools, or do you, if you have to make something, do you go to the makerspace still and do it?
I don't have near enough as I probably should. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a lot of metalworking tools that would be really handy to have, but they cost a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I imagine you're not buying Harbor Freight type stuff.
Harbor Freight, you can get away with some of their stuff, especially if you're
Yeah.
a beginner. Like, no, it's all right if that's the way you want to get off and get off the ground. Might as well start there,
Yeah.
and build the skills and eventually graduate up to something better quality.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was some Harbor Freight stuff I use. I have a welding table from Harbor Freight. I still use it. Holds
Okay.
my forge.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it works great. I like it. So,
So if
but I'm
somebody was
not a welder.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Disclaimer. Yeah.
the welders who are listening to your podcast are just screaming at me at the moment. No,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, it does what it does. It's great.
Yeah.
And I have there's some things I'm like, oh, that would be great to have. That would make my job easier. But at the same time, you work around it, and that's all. I mean, I've gotten some tongs from some makers that I really like, and I definitely don't have near enough as a lot of other blacksmiths out there. But I'll eventually get up there. I'm just not in a rush.
Right.
It's all right.
That's good. So if somebody was looking to get into silversmithing or blacksmithing, what advice would you give them?
I would first just try it out. Like, if you know Makerspace that maybe does a class, or you know somebody, maybe set up a time where you meet up with them.
Mhm.
Like I think doing it in person, you actually like get a feel for it better than watching YouTube stuff.
Yeah.
Um, Metalworking takes a lot of physical energy that I don't think people really realize. Like they'll watch Forge and Fire, and it doesn't really show all the work that gets involved in it. And
Yeah.
a lot of people, like I remember teaching a 16-year-old kid. He wanted to like start forging, and I was like, all right. So I started teaching him, and he got worn out like within the first 30-40 minutes of
Mm.
doing something. So it definitely does. I think yeah, so if you can do something in person, like physically doing something, I would say go for that first, before you start spending lots of money.
That's good.
And also, it's okay to start out cheap. I mean,
Mhm.
you don't have to get that $1,000 anvil. You
Is
can
that,
get some
is that what it
railroad.
costs?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's not cheap. I
Yeah.
mean, go for the Robo Track.
Yeah.
Go for the just big hunk of metal. Use that. It's okay. I think a lot of times there's a lot of false ideas out there that says I can make really great stuff if I have the best tools available. And it's really about building the skills. And you can build the skills using the inexpensive tools, and go for that first, because what you're doing is moving metal. You're not, it's that metal does not necessarily care
Yeah.
as long as you have like
And
a heavy
once you get the
mass underneath
skill,
it.
yeah. And once you get the skill, then getting the better tools ends up producing a
Yeah.
better result. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like
Yeah.
it's that's the thing. It's like a lot of people will start amassing everything first, and then they realize this isn't for me, and sometimes
Mhm.
they'll end up reselling everything.
That's when you
So
capitalize. You right. Yeah. You should get all this
uh
expensive stuff and then like, oh, they're not cut out for this.
yeah, unfortunately, like the anvils don't lose their, they don't go down in price.
Do they still
uh,
make anvils these days, or is it just like the existing? Okay. Is it
yeah,
Acme?
I mean, you can buy an anvil from Harbor Freight, but I don't
Oh,
necessarily. I would say railroad track would be better.
yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Build up
Also,
the
like,
skill.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you can get really good quality hammers from makers.
Mm.
Um, there's some makers out there who, like, if you're looking for a good hammer, there's, um, I would just start looking around. I finally got my hammer and I love it. So, um, I mean, there are certain things like it's weighted right. Um, and it's okay to modify tools to fit your needs too. So when I got my